So welcome everybody who is here live on the call with us, and also for all of those of you who are watching the replay as it gets distributed far and wide later on. Greg, I know you said I'm mostly running the show today. Do you want to do what's happening, OG members? Do you want to keep delivering your lines?
What is going on, Monkey Pod universe? Yeah, I vary that only slightly depending on who the intended audience is. And since we have opened this particular webinar up beyond just the OG community, I'll just welcome everyone. Welcome all.
Fantastic.
Thanks for being here. Hi, Sharon. Thanks for joining. And Walt Pitts is in the house, so we are good to kick things off.
Fantastic. So with that, I'm going to set the table a little bit here about why this conversation is happening and what we're hoping to get through in today's call. I have no doubt that this hour is going to fly by really quickly, especially with the amount of information I know our guest panelists have to share and the experiences they have and the types of technologies they're using. So this is going to fly by. And because I have no doubt it's going to fly by, I also genuinely believe that this particular event might become a treasure trove of content or follow-up webinar ideas. So please think of this session as an opportunity to kind of get started in some of the things that we're going to talk about, and then let us know what additional content and information you might want from it. So I am going to set the table, two big disclaimers, introduce our panelists, and then turn most of the conversation over to the team here. So first, introductions. This conversation is happening because we all know that things are changing. Things are changing at Keep. Keep is the software company that either binds us all together or at least brought us all together in the Monkey Pod community. So things are changing in their world in terms of the actual technology, the layout, the features, the company's position, all kinds of things are changing over there. And also just the landscape of products and services that are available for automation, whether it's the CRM tool, the database tool, the scheduling tools, the commerce tools, the integration tools, the landscape of just the tools that are available to us is vast and changing quickly. And when I talk about change, I want to be clear that I believe, and I think the panelists, when we get into it, will agree that change is good for a variety of reasons. So if you are, here because you're such a big Keep fan, change in the marketplace is going to drive innovation in that marketplace, right? It's going to kind of show what features and what future the product like that is going to have. And also change, if you're exploring other products and services, there are more options than ever before. And I think it's kind of a fun opportunity for us to get to talk about what those are, both in the core CRM and in the other products that connect up to our CRMs. So that's why we're here. Is not to pick on one or prop up one. It's just to have a nice open conversation about the types of technologies people are either using deeply or kind of just like getting started and kicking the tires of right now. Okay, so I said two big disclaimers. The first disclaimer is that we are probably going to talk about a lot of options today. So the very nature of this conversation is not going to be prescriptive. Like, I don't think anybody watching this is going to leave this and think, oh, I know exactly how to implement a new idea now, because in fact, we might introduce too many conflicting ideas today. And I hope that that is the fun of it, that we get to kind of open up, break some eggs, but not necessarily make the omelet today. So we'll be exploring new things. If you feel like you're susceptible to shiny objects, don't use this webinar as the excuse to lose hours or days to switching things that don't need to be switched, right? Don't use this as like, oh my goodness, now I have to go try the thing that's different or better or new. Just take it for what it is, an exploration of the services that are out there, which I think is going to be really great for the enthusiasts in the space who kind of want to know the lay of the land. Second big disclaimer, I assume and think as well that this call is going to be full of opinions. Our panelists are all automation experts, so we all enthusiastically explore new technologies as part of our work, as part of their work. So there'll be lots to share, but because we're exploring new things, we might have blind spots or assumptions or experiences that are kind of different. Like one of our panelists might have like really figured out how to use a new tool where somebody else is still a little skeptical about it. And I also think that that's going to be part of the fun of this is that we've prepped a bit, but we haven't prepped so much as that we know kind of the position each of us are going to take. So I think that'll be part of the fun of it as we go through here. And just a bit of a safe haven statement as well. We're not bashing any particular company. So if we get something wrong, like we say, hey, it can't do that, it might be part of that exploration and not opening ourselves up to a particular company being upset with us. So with all of that preamble and the disclaimers, let's introduce our panelists. I'm going to give the quick round robin here and then give each of you 30 seconds to talk about your work and what brought you to it. So first panelist, we have Codi Quick. Codi, hello. I think I see you over there on my other screen.
Yes.
Codi from, and if I get any of these wrong, please help me out, from Quick Business Resolutions, which is an agency that actually does a whole bunch of things. You've got your automation piece, but you've also got specialists who do a whole bunch of things, right? Marketing, websites, VA work, finance work, and all of those types of things. So I'll give you a second to introduce yourself in just a moment. We've got Jake Talbert from 6th Division, implementation agency. I think you serve customers all around the world, but from your home in Arizona, Tempe, is that right? Is that where the office is now? And then
not even close. Yeah.
Not even close.
It's not, and it's also not pronounced that.
Oh no. Okay, well, I'm from Toronto, so I don't know anything about anything.
It's all good. All good.
And then finally, we have Mr. Mike Harris from Goldfish Marketing. Goldfish
Solutions.
Oh my goodness, I'm going to outsource the entire introductions next time around. And actually, I'll do that right now. Codi, if you want to give us your 30 seconds.
Yeah, if you want to
correct me. If you want to correct me, go ahead.
Anything Cameron got wrong?
I don't know. I think you did an okay on mine. Like I think you actually nailed basically everything we do. We have a team that offers a whole lot of different things. We work with a lot of different clients, and it's part of why we have a lot of different CRMs and tech is they come to us from many different industries, sometimes having their own tech, sometimes needing us to bring those solutions to them, and with different members of the team with a little of everything from that the websites, automation, graphics, social operations, those type of things. So yeah, been doing it for a while, and like to those shiny objects is more the shiny pieces of the business. I like to do a little of all of it and get to play this way.
Yeah, I guess if you're good at saying yes to things and the businesses aren't brand new, I'm learning this all the time in our work that people aren't coming to us asking for a prescription for their very first tech tool ever. They've got their unique mix of things. And if you want to be able to say yes to those opportunities, you kind of need to be able to flex into all of them. So I think that's great, and probably means that you've got lots of products that we can talk about soon. I think I went to Jake second. Jake, do you want to do your 30 seconds?
Yeah. Jake Talbert, we're in Gilbert, which is near Tempe, Arizona. But close in region. Yeah, 6th Division. I mean, we are one of the original partners for Keep, helping people build what we call happy client factories through automation. And we work inside of any small business automation tool you can imagine. Keep, HubSpot, ActiveCampaign, High Level, all of those in that world. So yeah, we're down in the weeds with that. Our big thing is just naturally going to be build out full journeys. You know, how do we build a whole client journey that creates what we call a happy client factory, so there's no holes or, you know, anything like that. Great experiences for people. So, and I love that Mike Harris is on, because Mike Harris is a 6th Division alumni.
It's true.
And I love that Greg is on, and that Nick is on, and there's probably others who are on that I'm not thinking of, who are all current or former clients of the 6th Division. So I always enjoy seeing our peoples on the calls.
I am a former client of both Jake and Codi's. I don't know if I've hired Mike. Actually, I have hired Mike to work at one of the retreats. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm a client of all three of these businesses. Yeah.
I love that. That's very cool. Okay, and with that, Mike, I think Jake just threw it to you.
Yeah. I've made the rounds as far as working for Infusionsoft slash Keep folks. Started at the OG at Infusionsoft back in the day when it was still Infusionsoft. Um, Worked my way up through tech support into training. Greg was my mentor for a little bit, unofficial. I don't think it was his. I don't think he got paid for it, but he got paid his regular salary not to be a mentor. But then I took over his job as the trainer and friggin' loved it. So I got to travel all over the place. Training and teaching is a huge passion of mine. I love speaking. And then for work, Goldfish Solutions basically works out of most major CRMs. For the most part, I serve HubSpot and Keep, a little bit of Active Campaign, Drip, Pipedrive, things like that. And most of my clients are working off of, either project or retainer based stuff. So I really don't have a niche. It's just, I love working with, love learning new things. My superpower is simplifying and automating complicated processes. So I love whiteboarding, breaking things down. It's my favorite thing in the world to do.
Love that. And I think we're talking about whiteboarding and breaking things down, kind of like when you were talking about how, Codi has clients that come in from a whole variety of tech, already established in their business at the time when they need help. I think that this kind of more technology agnostic conversation we're having today really speaks to that whiteboarding problem solving that you're describing, right? If you sure, like, people might want to save money by not having redundant technology or having to switch. Like, if you've got something, you've got something. But I do think it's pretty cool to be able to go to the whiteboard and say, let's break down this problem first, and then figure out if we actually have the tools to build it, rather than saying, hey, I've got this tool. How am I going to squeeze a little bit more value out of it or make it do the thing I think I need it to do?
Yeah.
So,
like a car, like almost like a mechanic. They already own the car. Let's make it run better. Let's make it better. Like, I'm not building the car for you. I'm not a manufacturer. I can be. I mean, not for a car. I can build automation, but I couldn't do that with a car.
Right. Cool. Okay. Well, welcome, panelists. Thank you, everybody, for joining. The first, or like the first content segment I have today is to talk about CRM specifically. Later on, I'm going to have some questions about like connected applications for things like commerce and appointment scheduling and whatever, webinars, all the things. But I want to start by talking a little bit about CRM technology. And the first question is around, if I say all-in-one versus best in class, maybe as it relates to features. Do any of you have a take on using all-in-one platforms or trying to use an all-in-one platform, versus do you find yourselves reaching for integration tools or native integrations as much as you need to try to get like, hey, I'm fine with using 2 or 3 things as long as it's the best 2 or 3 things. So I hope my question didn't lead to too much bias, but like, do you believe businesses are finding success in all-in-one CRMs, or do you believe that they're finding success by,
Going out to other places?
going out to all the places? Jake, do you want to go first?
Yeah. There's a reason for the last 15 years we've been heavy Keep implementers, and it's because it was kind of the flagship of all-in-one, and the goal being, how do we limit the tools? How do we limit the tech chaos that happens? We call it tech Jenga. Like, you move one piece of your puzzle and all of a sudden your whole system starts to break. And so we've always focused on that. We've always looked at it from that perspective of like, hey, there's a lot of value in an all-in-one, but just because it's all-in-one does not mean it is the best at all it does in many cases. And that's true for all of the ones that you could consider to be an all-in-one. They have great resources, great features, that you don't have to go out to as many places to get, but there may be limitations in the texting, in the calling, in the pages, in the whatever, fill in the blank, that it's like, yeah, I'd way rather, for creating a better experience for either the client or for the team, I would rather use a third-party tool at that point. But once again, our goal is we try to limit the tech chaos. And so I would rather focus more towards, as much in one as possible.
All in one. I'm going to coin that phrase, as much in one as possible. So you like build the foundation, try to stay close to like the safety of the center of the island, and then,
Yeah,
but yeah, stay
you make
open-minded to.
your nucleus there in the middle, and just you're limiting how many little spokes you have to push off of that.
Yeah. Any agreement, disagreement with Jake? Thank you for that, Jake.
Yeah, I find a lot of them are um like we've all if you ever tried on a one size fits all anything, that's not true. It's and then so we don't see one size fits all most in clothes or whatever. Now it's one size fits most. And that's how I see like HubSpot, things like that, where it's got a lot of the things that owners need, or keep as well, but their pages suck. All right, cool. I'll use WordPress because they're best in class on that. I'll use somebody else's strong suit to make up for whatever the shortcoming is for the CRM. And then there's some where I just find it's like one size, like F you. Like, wait, we put this tool together and like good luck. And it's like not it's Pipedrive kind of come to mind with that. It's a sales tool that has no round robin. Like to me, that is the epitome of like figure it out. Like good luck.
Which tool?
Pipedrive.
Oh, Pipedrive. Yeah.
It's not terrible if you don't need a lot. But it could be a one size fits most for very small sales oriented businesses. It may work well. It's just one of those things where I'm like, that's one thing where it looks good on paper. And then once you start doing it, like this doesn't fit a lot of our needs. So it's one size fits most is as best as anybody will get. And even then you're still like, I rarely see any scenario where you don't have to go outside that tool. It's always it's just the reality check that's going to happen. You're going to have to pay for another tool no matter what.
Right. And I guess the products that limit your ability to do that is like one of the biggest challenges. So
Sure.
I think in a couple of minutes, I do have a question here about like deal breakers. And I feel like you've fast forwarded to that quite nicely, whereas I know I sign up for trials because I'll kick the tires of new stuff. Like I'll open up, oh, that's interesting. And I'll click it and I'll sign up. And I'll give it 15 minutes or 10 minutes and probably miss a whole bunch of great stuff that the designers probably considered. They'll be like, it doesn't even synchronize with a calendar. I'm out. Or it doesn't
Right.
even, it has a, whatever it is, right? All of the emails always come from their branded domain. I hate that, right? Like there's something that will happen that'll bounce me out of a 30-day trial 20 minutes into it. And I think that it sounds like you've kind of hit one of those deal breakers where, hey, it doesn't have a round robin and it's supposed to be for salespeople. I'm not doing it. Codi, do you want to jump in on this question?
A lot of the same. My first response when you say an all-in-one, I'm like, does that exist? Because they don't. Like, there's nothing out there that I would say fits an all-in-one, good at everything type of tool. Long as I can add to it, I like to still have that same idea of the nucleus of if I don't have to go and add a billion extra pieces, that is ideal. But I don't have one that I'm like, this is the end all be all. It does everything and it's incredible at absolutely everything I need for any single client.
Yeah. I think this is a bit of a divergence from the idea of like pure CRM. I sometimes find myself a little bit jealous if I interact with a business that is so kind of niche and they've bought the purposeful product. Like if you ever go somewhere, like if I go somewhere that uses Jane, I go to get a massage at the massage therapist and they're using Jane app, or I go to the gym and they're using, what's that super famous, that just escaped my mind, Mindbody, right? I know as an automation nerd, like, oh, you've got all of these blind spots around, like it doesn't do email broadcast, it doesn't do that, doesn't do that. But I do sometimes meet the owners of those places and they're just blissfully, I bought the thing and now I run the business. And I occasionally feel envious of the people who don't know that there's stuff beyond the walls if they're all in one because they're so content inside of it.
Now, I want to throw out one caveat to like the all-in-one phrasing or whatever. When it comes to CRMs, look for something that is a CRM and marketing automation tool first, and then does other stuff. Do not look for a project management tool or a landing page tool or a course building tool or a whatever other function it has that is trying to be an all-in-one where they're trying to branch into the CRM world. Things like a Kajabi, a Monday, a blah 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 blah. There's all these ones where I'm like, that's not what you do. That's not
Right.
your world. You're just trying to go bigger into other avenues and streams to try and retain your clients and be more than a project management tool. But in reality, those are the ones that are like a pipe drive type thing. They're trying hard to do that, but that's not what they've designed themselves to be. So they miss out on so many key functions of what a CRM and a selling process would have in them.
Yes. I hear that. And I was about to say, as you were opening your thought there, like, let's name some names here. And then you did, right? The Kajabis,
Click funnels,
the right, right. So I think, so they end up creeping these additional little services on, and then you end up with like three things that can take a payment, or, five things that can send an email. But some of them are measurably bad at those things, right? Like the massage therapist trying to send a mass broadcast from Jane might not be the best place to do that. So I think that's I think that's a cool take to say, well, the CRM and email marketing does have to remain that center of truth, because I think it could be tempting to try to put an Airtable or a Monday or a ClickUp and say, oh, I can put phone numbers in ClickUp. We can, and so it sounds like your advice is CRM lives in the center and let it own that.
When you're ready to make that jump, if you are plus 250,000 a year in revenue, then you need to go with a CRM focused like center function tool. If you're sub that, like use a Google Sheet. Like don't waste your time and send emails manually. You don't have enough volume and you haven't proven your business to be like sustainable enough to even think about these tools. So get to the point where you can actually, you're going to need to utilize that tool, build the ideas, the functions, what you'd want to have happen there. But it's like always start CRM and marketing automation centered, the Keeps, Entreports, high levels, active campaigns, HubSpots. Like you start there and then branch out as needed.
Right. Mike, Cody, do either of you have clients who have success putting a Monday or a ClickUp or an Airtable or a FileMaker Pro, or I don't know what else do people use in the middle, or is Jake's take the take?
No, it's funny. I was actually right before Jake went there. That's something I was going to add was they are happy if you use the tool that is designed to do the thing it's designed to do, and if that's what you need it to do. But when you're then trying to force a tool to do something it doesn't, and that's when we end up adding on all the extras and all the layers and all the things that end up breaking or don't working the way they want or don't have the customer journey that is actually easy or convenient for us or the user. Like there's so many things that go with it that end up making it worse, that it has to kind of have that CRM at the main focus, and then you add the perks from there, the others that don't. And it's where your main business should be. If you're not working out of that and able to function out of that as like where you're looking and your business is making enough money that you're looking in there for some KPIs and have an idea of what those are, then you aren't necessarily at that level that it's worth it. And I agree with that. If I'm trying to send emails and work out of a project management system, which I'm a big project management girl, I love me some organization, it's not my CRM.
Right. I often feel tempted personally, like as a keep ClickUp combo for how we run our business. I find myself tempted to put more and more information in the PM tool, and often don't feel like that's often a midnight experiment that I bounce at about 1 a.m. and be like, you know what, we're going to go back to the CRM as I'm going to abandon this test. So in response to Jake's question, I've got, and I'm going to give this to Mike first, if you want to prepare for a second here. Sure. Sharon asks, shouldn't a startup with some resources set itself up for the best functional system? And I think Sharon's question is probably directly related to Jake's premise that, hey, like you could probably start with a Google Sheet and some BCCs, which sounds to me like quite unconventional advice in some ways, but it, I think, has to do with minimum viable products and like prove that you need a thing. So Mike, do you want to? Oh, Jake wants to defend himself before I give the mic to Mike.
So The number, the amount you sell doesn't matter. What matters is, are you selling the same thing consistently through the exact same way? If the
Right.
answer is yes, then go find ways to automate that. Most people, if you're doing that, you're likely doing 100 plus thousand. I mean, we're talking to get to 250, you're talking 20 to 30,000 monthly. That's nothing crazy. And so as you build towards that, though, it's like most people, when they're sub those numbers, if when you get down to the nitty gritty and I say, well, what can I buy from you? How do you deliver that? Then the answers are all over the place. And I'm like, cool. Then what are you trying to automate? You don't
Right.
know what your process is and you don't know what you're selling yet. Let's get clear on that stuff and how you sell it consistently before we go and try to build automation and distract yourself. That's my one justification.
Yeah, automation is an amplifier, right? So if you don't know what you're doing, is going to amplify the pace at which you deliver what you do. So, and I appreciate your response, and I think that part of your response there was that you are talking, when you said that, you were talking about very small businesses. You're not talking about businesses that are carrying the salaries of a second salesperson or a first salesperson beyond the entrepreneur. Like, I think that you really were talking about like a minimum viable first version prove it business. Mike, I said I was going to throw that to you. Do you have thoughts on Sharon's question?
Yeah, part of it is a lot of these. If you're a first time business owner, you don't know what you need because likely you're still, to Jake's point, you're probably still creating your process. You know what you're selling, but not necessarily how you're selling it or how you're selling it in an automated way. And I think people pick tools based on what they think they need. And then they realize, and then once they're locked in, this happens with Keep, with MailChimp especially, because it's free and they, it doesn't, it's easy to get off the ground. And then once you realize, crap, this doesn't do everything I want it to do, then they start picking other tools. It's not or they pull the ripcord and be like, I need a whole nother tool, which may be the right response. But when you're moving from Keep to HubSpot or whatever, when you are at the 250,000 mark or you have 150,000 contacts that you're emailing constantly, that's not an easy thing. And likely more shit's going to break in the transition. And I think that's what I see. A lot of people will use completely different tools to fill holes. CRM tools rather than an add-on like a Plus This or a Zapier. And so they go too big to fill a hole, and they end up with more complication. They just end up muddying the waters even more rather than, I found this one tool that fixes this one problem, and now my puzzle is complete again until I discover something else that needs to be fixed or improved or implemented. So I think some people just don't know what the tool does or what it all entails, and they either go too big or they abandon ship and move along when that may or may not be the right move. And so it just adds to the mess, to the chaos.
I'd like to get into some questions for all three of you in a second around naming some names, celeb favorites, some up and coming, those types of things. But I think now is a good time to address, Mike, you're talking about the cost of switching, right?
Sure.
And how as experts in automation, do you believe people balance the sunk cost fallacy? It's time to move on because we're versus the shiny object syndrome or the change for change sake, right? Because if you've got something, I mean, we've got clients in our business, and I not that I won't name names, I can't remember which ones are considering, a shift from here to there, but there's certain discussion of like they're frustrated with what they're on, but they're also making $2, $3, or $4 million a year on what they're on, right? It's like, okay, so you're frustrated with what you're on, except that it took you from 300,000 to 2 million. Is that what is that frustration because the button isn't where you want it to be, or is it because it's actually holding us back from making the next bit of stuff we want to make? So again, with that preamble, that bias, how do you, I'm sure there's no firm answer, but like, how do you reconcile that? Like, we've been in this for a bunch of years, we've outgrown it, it's a sunk cost, the investment we've already made, time to move on, versus, don't follow the shiny objects, stay the course. Any notes? I know Greg wants in on this too. Greg, do you want to go first?
Well, yeah, I don't know that I have a lot to contribute on that. particular question, but I do want to say something that I'm feeling that I don't know if other people listening are feeling as well. And so I just want to like speak it in case it helps anyone. Our hope for this conversation is not to necessarily change your mind or like convince you that one specific tool is where you need to be, whether it's Keep or something else. I feel like whatever decision each business or entrepreneur or individual makes should be an informed decision. And so if you feel any sense of like conflict about frustrations with your current technology stack, the goal for this conversation is to either expand your perspective about tools in the space or validate that like, okay, cool, there isn't a perfect solution, and maybe like the cobbled together system I have is working for me. Like, I think that's it, is like, it would be easy for somebody to show up here and think, great, which tool are they mentioning and how am I going to run with it? But there is another side to this that might just be like, you're not missing anything, and like, by staying where you're at, you might be making the right choice. Like, that is also one of the options, even if we aren't explicitly drawing a circle around it. That's all. Is just
Absolutely.
like, so nobody feels a sense of stress to, run in a certain direction. Sometimes what you're looking for is just comfort that like, hey, everything's working okay and you're in the right place.
Yeah. And with that, Greg, I want to also just say clearly too, I don't think that we want to make the conversation about moving to anything in particular or from anything in particular. Like, I think like
Right.
I would and I've signed up Keep customers as recently as the last month, and we'll move people from their their not functioning system towards it. And I've actually got clients right now who are making some changes. They're changing their LMS, but they're not changing their CRM. And yeah, so I think it's worth calling out though. So thank you for that, Greg.
Right. And Jake just commented like, this format would not be the best way to prescribe a tool anyway. 100% correct. But
Right.
like, as somebody, like, you guys know, the bulk of my experience, 90% plus of it, is exclusively within the walls of Keep. Like, yeah, I know some of the tools and add-ons and stuff, but I have never once logged into HubSpot or Go High Level. And that's the reason that Cameron and Jake and Mike and Codi are here, is through their agencies or their individual businesses, they have worked in a bunch of these systems. So for the folks who only have experience in the tools that we use, this is an opportunity to access individuals who have compared and contrasted, either consciously or subconsciously, the landscape of options out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's get one or two quick answers on the time to move versus the sunk cost fallacy versus the don't follow the shiny object question. I'm not going to facilitate who. If you're ready to go, just
Yeah.
go.
I'll jump in. So I think
That's
the big thing, whether it's the move or from the start, if you come to me and it is you have a system and we're just looking at a certain problem, and it's that we're going to look and see if it is a problem with the system or we're missing one piece, and then look and decide if it is a actual move or not. If you're coming to me from the very start and you have nothing, that's when I'd actually like really sit down and look at recommendations, versus it's not my first instinct to sit there and say, let's move, because moving a system is not easy. It is not quick. There is a lot to it. It is why most of the time when they come to me and they don't have something, I'm going to recommend a tech up from what they probably want. Like Sharon's question of where is that line? Is the 250 it? Like, you're going to come to me and say, you're in this for the long haul, and you're going to tell me you want MailChimp, and I'm going to say no. Like, those aren't going to be my things that are going to line up, because I don't want to instantly change your tech as soon as you're outgrowing something there. We aren't going to just dip our toes and make a choice to then upgrade and change. And every opt-in form we've ever had to build, we're now rebuilding. So I'm going to encourage everyone to tech up enough to, what is the dream? And I'd rather pay a little bit more in that monthly subscription than charge you in 3 months to go rebuild it, just because we
Right.
now are running out of tech or have an issue or something we want that we didn't have. So that's always kind of my recommendation in general, is we tech up from the start. And it's kind of like my financial advisor will do the same thing. If you're kind of that risk assessment, you know, how much are you willing to risk, and how will you invest? How are we going to invest in our tech? Are we willing to actually invest in something that's going to take us for a good chunk? We're going to do this for a few years, or are we going to free tool to on top of free tool, and then you're going to end up paying me and my team more because now we're taking all of our time to spend messing with free tools versus buying a tool that does the job.
Yeah.
And I do the same thing on a move. Do we actually need to do that? Or do we need one tool to add to it? And how long is that going to last us versus what's the actual end goal? And is now the time to make that change while we're redoing a website or redoing the CRM and those kind of moves, and assess the whole thing. That way we're only doing those big moves one time every long time.
I think it's funny when a business is really small, like when they're sub 100 or sub 200, like the kind of money that Jake was talking about earlier and so on. The cost of tech can seem really expensive, right? $200, $300, $400 a month, or HubSpot 3,000. Like all of it is expensive relative to what you're kind of accustomed to spending and how much money is in your war chest, right? But yeah, I think that I hear that message very clearly. Tech up. And I also hear from you a real hesitancy to follow something, you know, just because, right? Kind of to what I was saying earlier, like, hey, if you might be frustrated, but if it's what got you from 300,000 to 2 million using maybe a keep checkout form or keep checkout form using Spiffy, maybe that's some proof that it's actually pretty good, right? Like, you know, so yeah, thank you, Cody, for going first.
Just to that point, a lot of it is asking the right questions. Like Jake said, a one-on-one conversation with somebody who's worked in a handful of CRMs to basically poke holes in all your wish lists. Why do you want this? So I want, like to Cameron's point, I want the button here instead of there. Okay, well, what else do you want? Like sometimes we can fix that with like a Chrome add-on, Tamper Monkey, things like that. I've worked with like I've moved keep buttons around using that. Like if that's your hang up, then we could probably fix it for free. But also like, what isn't it doing for you? What do you wish it did? And not only that, but where are you planning on taking the company in the future? Is the choice that we are making going to grow with you, and what does it look like cost wise? Because as Keep, HubSpot, anything that had like anything you're paying monthly or annually or quarterly or whatever, the more you add to it, the more expensive it's going to get. HubSpot's got all these hubs you can add on that only increase the cost, but also increase functionality. So it's like, all right, can we grow into this, or is it going to be a duct tape solution later down the road to make up for a shortcoming that we didn't ask about today? So a lot of it is, what's your vision for the future? Not just 6 months into the future, but 6 years or whatever. It's where do you see yourself going? Are you going, to Jake's point, do you sell one thing over and over again? Do you plan on introducing new products, digital service, physical products? Like, what's your dream? So we can pick the right tool from the beginning that we can then add on to, rather than piece third-party things together and have it be a Jenga tech stack.
Right. I think what's interesting about that too, and you're talking about, there's some, well, you don't need something when you're super tiny, but then also let's set it up from the beginning. I do think that the beginning starts like as soon as like as soon as you have a pattern, as soon as you have like, oh, I've sold a unit of this and I know what it feels like that is a good time to start automating early. So yeah, I think it does fit all kinds of sizes and all kinds of spaces, and then finding the right tech. So I keep teasing that we're going to name some tech in a minute here. And I think that's what we should probably get to. I will note, as you were talking about adding things on, and then you said HubSpot, you could always add another hub. Hey, I bought Marketing Hub. Now I need Sales Hub. Now I need Operations Hub. Now I need Service Hub. Now I need. I think that's one of those big grass is greener problems that a lot of us can face as well. I was exploring some high level stuff a couple days ago. I was like, because that product has everything in the kitchen sink. Not every item in the kitchen sink what's the expression, might be super refined, super perfect, have every button you want. Like the community feature doesn't have, a way to change your billing information, like maybe an Access Alley or Memburium would. Like it seems to have a million things, some very well refined and arguably better, some things that are like, oh, that's on its way. That's a few months, years, whatever, from where I'd like it to be. But I think the point of me bringing this up was that I found a plugin. I found a plugin that I could pay only $100 a month for that would solve a particular problem. And I thought, oh, somebody could move because they think, automatic resolution to problems and then still just be in kind of a different circle of add-ons and integration strategies and so on. So what I'd like to move to now is kind of three categories of CRMs. And in your businesses, in your practices, or the things that your clients are bringing to you, what's your I don't know, your OG? I don't know. I have in my notes here the ride or die. Like, what's the CRM or automation platform that you trust, that if I've got to solve a complex problem, I'm going to reach for this because it's rock solid or because you know how to manipulate it the best. My second one is maybe your current go-to is something different. Like it's not the most rock solid, but it's one that I'm really enjoying using. And if I had a new client, I had to solve a new problem, I might reach for this tool. And then my third segment in this is like, what's your new one to watch? Like, hey, maybe you're not in it yet, but oh, that little CRM startup over there has got something cooking. So I know I threw a lot of questions at you. You can take them in any order you want. Jake, do you want to go first? You haven't heard from you in a bit.
I mean, our ride or die has been Keep, and I can make Keep do almost anything, and I can make almost anything talk to Keep. There's ways to make it do all sorts of stuff. It is, of all the tools, the advanced automation builder should be its flagship selling point that they don't focus on, because no other tool has the robustness and the ability to do what the advanced automation tool does. Like it's insane what that you can do in that one frame compared to everything else. So for us, it always has been going to Keep, because we've been in it we were born out of that. We've been in it for 15 years. Vast majority of us came from the Keep space. And so it's the trustworthy one when it comes to, I know I can build it to do things that I want it to do. It is not my go-to right now. And we are actively moving 45% of our active high-paying clients off of Keep and Active Campaign to other tools. Simply because price increases, technology issues, like you name it, the list goes on and on and on. But each of the people we've talked to about it, they are the ones coming to us and saying, but what about this thing? And we're picking through the details. There's usually multiple calls where we're picking through details before we make a decision. My go-to right now is high level. It is, to me, superior to all of the other ones that are out there. It can do all of them, and in many cases, better. I can port Kajabi courses right in. I can port ClickFunnels pages right in. Its course builder is the same as Kajabi, Thinkific, any of that type of stuff. Page builder is going to be just like ClickFunnels. They're built on the same platforms when they used open source code, so they're literally the same. And when it comes to like pipelines and the actual pipeline automation and opportunities talking back and forth between contact records and how the data is passed through that way, like it's our go-to. And it is the up-and-comer for me. Even though I've been using it with people for over 2 years, if you look at what it is today and you come back next week, it's going to be different because they're doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on what they launch. It is insane. Their weekly updates email, I haven't seen that many updates from any of the other tools that we work with in a 6-month, 12-month period, let alone that's what they launched this week. And there's going to be just as many things launched next week. And so for me, it's the one to watch. It's growing. It's doing more and more and more. And it can handle someone who's new to automation. And I've got people who have 6.5 million contacts in there. sending tens of millions of emails. So like it can handle whatever it is. The cost is one of the biggest pieces that makes it way more favorable, especially if you're using an email SMTP plugged onto it. But yeah, that's for me, those are of the three categories. It's really the two tools, Keep and I can give people reasons to not do any other tool. I can tell them what's good about all of them, but I can give them more reasons not to use the others versus those two.
Right. I think that's a good take on it. And those are like some real rivals you've just kind of put head to head there. But I think it's interesting when there's a rivalry, when there's when there's a game on, and you can disqualify again if people are running their businesses on ActiveCampaign or on Kajabi or on whatever, like they're probably they've got great reasons for being in there, but you've just put two very core CRM products head to head. And the strength of the campaign builder, I think, is, as you've described it in Keep, is huge. Every time I've tried to build an automation in something else, either another CRM or those PM tools, project management tools we were talking about earlier, you're like, oh, they're so limited. It's a one when and then, or it's a separate lane or a separate campaign for each thing. So yeah, I think that's what made Keep famous way back, and probably is what going to keep is what is still the going to be hard to unseat from that campaign builder position. And what you're talking about with high level, I find interesting. You said, the website builder looks like ClickFunnels. This looks. I noticed that in contract signing. Like it's almost eerie sometimes. Like, oh, this just is Panda. Like the certificate looks like PandaDoc.
What are they doing? Let's do that and try to make it better. That's like, I feel like that's the tagline they have in their dev office is, what are those guys doing? Let's go do that exact thing and then make it better.
Right.
And what's great is, and the reason why those two are so important to me, like I said, from the original thing where I said, it starts with the CRM and the marketing automation platform as your nucleus. When you say all in one, those two are the closest to all in one.
Right.
If like in the world of all of the small business automation tools that are out there, Keep and Go High Level are the closest to all in one compared to any of the others, where you'd have to have other things for like payment processing or for pages or for whatever the thing may be.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, and some things that they just like get a little bit ahead on, like multi-currency. Like they get some things that are real pains responded to fast. Cody.
Yeah, so I can echo so much of everything Jake just said. I have my own personal heart issues with not just being a Keep fangirl forever and ever. But I white label High Level, and it is my go-to now. And it is where I am. It's the same. Like I will use others, but if people are asking me what is my new go-to, it will be High Level or our white labeled version of it. Not only because of everything Jake said, but also as an agency owner, it's the best option they're giving me. Like as my partner version of Keep versus High Level is a whole different world. I was able to go through the High Level certification. I was in their first group of certified people, and actually got to develop that program with them. And it was amazing to be a part of just that innovation and how quickly and literally, like as I'm taking the test, they are implementing my feedback and making those changes. And I did my first mastermind with them, and it was like 150 developers. And in 3 months, when I went to their conference, it was 250 developers. And their stuff literally is changing as fast as Jake is saying. It is incredible how much they're putting into it, what they are doing. It has its flaws. Like I twitch every time I build in the campaign, and I am a Keep girl. Like I want my things to do what I want them to do, but I'm definitely getting much faster and can do it. And there isn't anything I haven't been able to do in High Level.
Right.
That's now been the thing. I used to always be able to say that about Keep, and it was easy. And now I haven't found something, and most of the same as clients are coming to me because of price, because of issues, and are like, I'm looking for that something else more than me pushing something else, because there's even my own, I have not officially made. QBR has not moved Keep because that whole moving systems thing. But after this last stuff, it was the first time I really was like, okay, at this point now with the different price increases, the different stuff, and do I want to actually keep paying for 2 CRMs for my little business? Do I need 2 CRMs that are
Right.
this great, that are doing these things? Like, is that
Yeah.
what I really need? It was the first time I had to really consider that. But it's also who I will put my people that come to me wanting MailChimp. I'll put them in high level because it's easy enough for them to use. It will do the things. And I basically just teach them what they need to know. And then I'm like, just don't go buy something else without asking me if this does it. And
Right.
reach out first before you add something else, because this likely has a
Yeah.
version of it. Whether it's the answer, it isn't always the answer. There are things like I still use my WordPress. There's things I don't love of every piece of it.
Yeah.
But there are certain features that will win over a lot of the others now.
Yeah. So it sounds like yours is echo Jake's, and that there are two. There's the OG, and then there's the one that fits both spot number 2 and 3. And I have to tell you, in a couple of years that I followed the Go High Level story, I started out quite uncomfortable. A couple of years ago, I was like, what happens when the partner business closes? What happens when, when this happens? And, I think we've all been involved with various CRM companies who have a release report that's almost unbelievable sometimes. You're like, okay, well, I see the item on the release report, but when is it ready for me? And I don't have an answer to whether that is a problem, but I have personally struggled with reconciling that as people have good experiences, thinking, okay, but are they missing something, or is it half baked, or is it, and more, it seems to not be the case. Mike, do you have a love for any others? Do you want to throw a HubSpot or a Entreport or a Active Campaign or maybe say something nice about MailChimp? I don't know.
No, that's I don't have many nice words for MailChimp other than it's free.
For a little bit.
Right.
For a little bit.
Yeah, at the beginning. Yeah, my ride or die has always been Keep, just because I can make it do whatever I want. I've been in it for long enough. I think this whole top row of panelists have all worked in Keep and basically can make it do anything. And so that's my go-to. If somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, I have Keep. Can you help me do this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can make it do pretty much whatever you want." With the caveat of there are probably going to be plugins involved. As far as my go-to problem solver, lately it's been HubSpot. I've done some migrations from Keep to HubSpot, and you get a lot more, but it really depends on why are you looking to graduate from Keep. What are the reasons? Because HubSpot doesn't have everything. It doesn't have e-commerce or anything like that. You can link Spiffy into it, which is great. There's a lot of handy tools that kind of come from the Keep world that kind of crossed over, plus this. And so there's a handful of things that I just like HubSpot for, just because I can make that do almost everything. But it really depends on the client. And the one I've got my eye on that I've played around with a little bit every now and then has been High Level. I remember a buddy of mine and a bunch of other people on here, Scott Richens. I remember him talking about it initially, talking about the releases, like, "Hey, I'm in this Facebook group," and we're like, "Hey, I make a suggestion." Then developers just say done like the next day, like it's in the app already. And that was probably, I don't know, 5 years ago or so. And then I toyed around with it again after a mastermind with Sarah Laws, and I haven't really touched on it because I really haven't had any clients been using it. But there's enough chatter from everybody about how great it is, how easy it is. I really like the white labeling stuff, and I think they're called snapshots, where you can basically just say, "Hey, here's an app that's already done. Like just log in and I'll train you how to use this thing that I've designed specifically for either for your business or for your vertical or whatever, for your industry." And now you've got a full-blown CRM product that you can cater to other businesses, which is super appealing. Like I love the campaign builder. Like I can push campaigns into other people's, apps. But if I could load up like a whole Keep instance of, hey, I've got everything set up for you. There's a pipeline, there's commissions, there's whatever. That's dope. I love the
Yeah.
idea of that.
I'd love to address some of that because when I think about high level, when I think about HubSpot, I often struggle with just, Jake talked about the power of Campaign Builder and Keep, right? And from a marketer's perspective, from a sending email, from a configuring a journey, from having exit goals, I've always really struggled with the value proposition of moving somebody from a marketing perspective from Keep to HubSpot. I'm sure that there are advantages, but I don't see them like super big and glaring. And it's almost like there's this little teeter-totter where, but if it's assisted sales, like you've got to give a sales rep, the buttons they need to make
Right.
calls and push stuff forward. It feels like there's a lot of power over there as well. And I've
Yep.
often kind of struggled with that teeter-totter of like,
Sure.
yeah.
Well, with HubSpot, the power exponentially increases when you use just their tools. So you use their pages, their everything. Like it's a really like powerful tool, but a lot of the things that they want you to use in order to harness that power suck. Like or it's just that the ecosystem's too small. Like I would much rather use WordPress because I can plug so many things into it rather than HubSpot pages. Now there's some things where you can pick and choose things that you want to have, live on HubSpot versus WordPress, and there's probably somebody who's better at SEO and everything like that can probably speak to that. But there's benefits there. But for HubSpot, the caveat is it works best when you use their tools, and their tools, some of them are super awesome, some of them are super limited, or they just don't act like if you're used to WordPress, you're going to have a good time.
Yeah, that's that grass is greener problem as well. You're like, well, if I buy the expensive one, I'll have all the things,
Right.
right? But that's not necessarily true.
Sure. Yeah.
I know we're at the hour here, and if the panelists are available for 5 more minutes, I do want to just do a closing question. If not, I appreciate you. Love that you've contributed your time and expertise to this. And if anyone needs to catch these last 5 minutes in the recording. I knew it was a 90-minute session. I felt it when we booked it, but yeah, here we are. So while we're talking about these tools, and I'm not surprised that when I gave those three categories, ride or die, go to, up and comer, we all stayed pretty close, which is super interesting. Great insight for me. Keep is what brought us together, and for most of us binds us together. And it's what we run a lot of our businesses on, kind of like to Cody's point, MonkeyPod runs on Keep, like lots of businesses run on Keep, especially inside of our community here. There's a thing that I'm optimistic for, like I have this really deep-seated hope in, which is Solution Launchpad. I'm not sure how many partners are on the call versus users, but that snapshot stuff you were talking about, where you can load up like the perfect template for people who have just taken this training or who want to use this strategy, or the perfect template for HVAC contractors or dentists or architects or VA firms, like whatever vertical you're choosing, beyond just campaigns, right? Like the idea of being able to bundle a landing page and a pipeline and a user role and a contact view. I'm very, very hopeful for that, because if I was a product manager at Keep, which I'm not, a big disclaimer, I don't have any authority over anything over there, but like I would be looking at that part of high level in the partner ecosystem and say, oh, partners are finding success with snapshots. So I hope that Solution Launchpad is like the big mallet that's like, oh, I see your snapshots. Here's a behemoth way of doing that. So I've got some hopefulness around there, some optimism. Is there anything that any of you are optimistic about because you put Keep on your ride or die, anything that's out now or coming soon that brings you some optimism for that ride or die seat in your list?
There are things that I have signed an NDA on that I can't talk about, that I have
seen.
Some
of them? Oh.
And I have seen. And Cameron, you were there as part of a lot of that unveiling. There are some extremely cool things that they're doing. The solution launchpad and some of the pieces that they're working on via AI give me a lot of hope on the things that it can do for the person who Keep makes the most sense for, or the person who's in Keep and is wanting to just, they're ride or die, they love it, it's doing everything they need. One of the other pieces of Solution Launchpad that's really cool is the ability that you can do just like, hey, this is the best selling process. And so here's my page that I can have you opt in for the sales call and then book the call. And it has the video placeholder and then the pipeline. Like I can bundle just a sales process into the Solution Launchpad. I can bundle just so like you can, for me, it's strategy focused because strategy always precedes implementation. And so if the strategy is sound, it's like, cool, like let's sell the strategy as a part of that thing. But where they're headed with that, as well as with what they showed with AI, and then things that we're not allowed to talk about yet, that they'll be releasing and announcing between now and September, I believe is when they said. There are things that give me hope. There's a reason we haven't switched off of it. We still use Keep. We looked at switching and we said, nope, it's not worth it. It's for us, it's still Keep. And we worked around the problems that our founding partner had within Keep that he didn't like. And so it was like, cool, well, it's not going to be better when we go to these other places. Like you're going to get this better, but that's worse. You're going to get this. So yeah. Like I said, there's tons that they're doing that gives me hope. And I hope that the type of stuff they just released or that they announced at our partner event in March, April, I hope that path and that kind of wave continues as we go throughout and get to September and into next year, that there'll be as exciting of announcements that they're coming out with.
I totally agree. Yeah, that was again, not to get too nostalgic about things and not to make people feel bad if they weren't at the event. That was challenging because we knew the price changes were coming, and we also got to see things that were too far away for everyone to know about. And I found so that gave me a bunch of optimism about things that were coming, and also this like time dread, this like, oh, there's just not enough time to keep people like again, not the time to therapize on that, but like that was a real challenge because there is some just ridiculously good stuff coming really, really soon. Who hasn't gone in a while? Mike, optimisms?
Yeah, as I see, like disclaimer, I work in Max Classic like exclusively because I can't stand the other ones. It just not I can't stand it. It just feels half baked still, and there I can make Max Classic do everything. But seeing some of the things from from the other versions make it into Max Classic is encouraging because one, I know that it works because it's made its way down to the OG. But also like I don't know, for a while it just felt like it just felt like they were doing whatever they wanted to do rather than the customers wanted to do, and they Keep kind of goes through that cycle of like, hey, we're going to tell you what you want, and then when that doesn't go well, then they're like, well, what do you want? And I feel like that cycle is like the gap is closing between like here's what you want versus what do you want kind of thing. And so the improvements that I'm seeing are stable, which is great. At least the stuff that I use, the news builders, things like that, with keeping a lot of the same functionality that makes it what it is. So I see them like protecting kind of the spirit of Keep or Infusionsoft as I've known it for the last 12, 15 years, however long it's been. But also looking at new stuff, and it's kind of like a bittersweet thing where I see the new stuff. I'm like, yeah, but these other CRMs have already had that for a while. I'm grateful that it's here now. But I've already seen this. I've already seen this in other places. But I love that it's not the changes and improvements don't seem as superfluous. They don't seem as just like, hey, this is a cool shiny thing. It's everything has a purpose now, which I feel is moving in a much better direction than I've seen it move in the last 10 years.
Ammon coming on as the head of that team has been
He's a
a
baller, dude.
massive, massive thing. Like that, one of the best hires they've made in probably 10 years.
Yeah, I agree. It's brought a calm, I think, to that whole, as an outsider, again, observing, not that I know what goes on behind the closed doors there, but I think that he's brought a real calm to the development process. And I think that he's not here. I'll make sure that he doesn't feel excluded. We were talking about people when they're not here, but um, I think that he, I think that some people can easily criticize how slowly things come out, but I actually think that you can flip that and say there's a discipline to having things come out, right? So if the other side of the coin is fast, 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 half-baked stuff, I would take a little bit slower and methodical and intentional any day. And I do, when I get to spend time with him, I get an air of that. And I think that's a real optimism from the key perspective from me as a partner as well. Uh, we're coming up on time, and by up on time I mean 9 minutes past it. So Codi, optimisms, wishes.
I'd say in general, I'm still a Keep girl. Like I'm always optimistic about what they've done. There's ups and downs of everything. I've had the cycles. A client comes to me and says they have Keep. It's still a happy, like, great, we can do whatever you want to do. Like until that changes and there's something that makes it where I'm like, oh, I can't work in that. I love Keep. Keep is great. It's doing what we want. And I love that there's competition and things pushing innovation and conversation and change in all the directions. I think that all of that brings good things to what we do and what is possible for us as well as our clients. So right now it is all optimistic for me. I think there's only good things that can come from it.
Love that. Well, with that, I think that concludes today's event. I also think that starts a whole bunch of little snippets and ideas that will probably cause me to invite all of you. I mean, not probably. You're all always welcome to come back to the Monkey Pod stage. But I think that there's a lot to unpack from this and maybe go through that convergence process of giving some people some advice. I gave the disclaimer at the beginning. We're going to break the eggs and not make the omelet today. Talk about a lot of options. Don't use them as the shiny objects or the shiny squirrel to go and chase down. So I hope we've delivered on that. Founder of Monkey Pod, Greg, would you like to bring us home here?
Yeah, thanks. I was very much a fly on the wall for this conversation because, as I expressed, I don't have a ton of experience in the different platforms in the ecosystem. I do my best to like stay abreast of them, but this conversation was really helpful, and I want to express gratitude to you, Cameron, for hosting and facilitating the conversation, creating the space for this, and to Jake, Mike, and Codi for sharing, like you said, their expertise and doing it in like a thoughtful, genuine, and in some cases very diplomatic way. I think that it's just healthy to be able to have conversations like this, to not pretend like there's only one option or that there aren't faults to it. Like, I just think it's healthy for us to embrace the reality of like where we're at. And like Cameron said, Monkey Pod runs on Keep successfully, as do thousands of other small businesses. I love it and plan to continue using it, but it would be silly not to be aware of the different tools and options you have at your disposal, because each individual, has the agency to choose what is the best fit for them. And it's important to be able to have the right information to make those informed decisions. Now, we will wrap this up here. Thank you all for going over with us. We did record, and we will process and distribute that recording to everyone who attended. And also, I'd love to put you all in touch with Jake, Mike, and Codi if you have follow-up questions. They all work with customers and clients in individual capacities. So if you have needs for the services that they offer, they happen to be three friends of mine, but they're also independently experts that I have paid money for assistance or guidance in different ways, so I can vouch for them from the customer side of things as well. I think that's all she wrote. Thank you all so much for joining us live today.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.